Victor often questioned his sanity, but lately, the line between reality and his imagination had become impossible to distinguish. The world around him seemed to shift, change, and bleed together like a canvas left out in the rain. It began subtly. At first, he would misplace things, his keys, his phone, but they'd turn up in odd places, inside the refrigerator, under his pillow, once even inside the pocket of a coat he hadn't worn in years. Then came the voices, soft, indistinct whispers that seemed to echo just behind him, vanishing when he turned to look. Victor lived alone in a cramped apartment, the kind of place that felt oppressive even when the lights were on. The peeling wallpaper and dim lighting only amplified his unease. He kept telling himself it was stress, lack of sleep, maybe even a vitamin deficiency, but deep down, he wasn't so sure. One night, as he brushed his teeth, Victor noticed something strange in the bathroom mirror. His reflection was slightly off. Its movements lagged, just a fraction of a second. He froze, toothpaste dripping from his mouth. His reflection tilted its head, scrutinizing him. "Are you real?" he whispered. The reflection smirked. Victor stumbled back, clutching the edge of the sink. When he blinked, the reflection was normal again, mimicking his terrified expression. His pulse hammered in his chest as he turned off the light and fled the bathroom. That night, he dreamed of an endless hallway lined with mirrors. Each reflection was wrong. Some twisted grotesquely, others whispered inaudible secrets. One reached through the glass, grabbing his arm. Victor woke up screaming, a searing pain in his arm. When he flicked on the light, red finger-shaped welts marked his skin. Victor began avoiding mirrors altogether. He covered every reflective surface in his apartment, but his unease only grew. Every time he turned a corner or opened a door, he expected to find something, or someone, waiting for him. One evening, as he returned home from the store, he saw a man standing at the end of his hallway. The figure wore a tattered coat and had his back to Victor. "Hey, can I help you?" Victor called out, trying to sound authoritative despite the tremor in his voice. The man didn't move. Victor stepped closer, his grocery bag crinkling in his grip. "You're not supposed to be here." The man turned slowly. His face was blank, featureless, as though someone had erased it. Victor's heart stopped. He dropped the groceries and ran into his apartment, slamming the door behind him. The hallway was silent, but he swore he could hear footsteps pacing outside his door. Days blurred into nights. Victor stopped sleeping, terrified of what he might see if he closed his eyes. His apartment seemed alive. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. Objects moved on their own, and those damned whispers followed him everywhere. He tried to leave, but every time he stepped out of his apartment, he found himself back inside. It was as if the building had swallowed him whole, trapping him in an endless loop. "None of this is real," he muttered to himself, rocking back and forth on the couch. "I'm just imagining it. I'm sick." A laugh echoed through the room, sharp and mocking. "You're not sick, Victor," a voice whispered. He looked up, and there it was, his reflection, sitting across from him in the armchair. Except this reflection wasn't tethered to any mirror. "You're finally seeing the truth," it said, its voice dripping with malice. Victor shook his head. "No, you're not real. This isn't real." "Isn't it?" the reflection sneered. "You've always been here, Victor. You built this prison yourself." Desperate to escape, Victor grabbed a knife from the kitchen and lunged at the reflection. It laughed as the blade sliced through empty air, and Victor's momentum carried him into the wall. When he opened his eyes, he wasn't in his apartment anymore. He was in a sterile white room, strapped to a bed. Victor, a woman in a lab coat, stood over him, her face kind but guarded. "You've had another episode." Victor blinked, disoriented. "Where am I?" "You're in the facility," she said gently. "You've been here for years, Victor. Everything you've been experiencing, it's all in your mind." He stared at her, his breath shallow. The room felt too real, too solid. Was this the truth? Or was this just another layer of the nightmare? As she turned to leave, Victor caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished metal of a cabinet. It smirked.